Welcome to the Power of Offense with Keith and Rodney. And today we have another hot one for y'all, and we're going to talk about reparations again. Now, we talked about reparations in the past, y'all. Yes, we did. We talked about it before we had the influx of subscribers, but we're going to touch this thing again for y'all because a lot of you all right now, I'm specifically talking about black people, right? Because we black, right? A lot of y'all are going to be upset when you find out that if we do get monetary reparations, right, it will be some white people that's going to get it also. Now, this video we about to play is going to prove what we're saying. All right, it's going to prove it because, again, here at the Power of Offense, what can be proven must be proven, and we always prove what we say. So we don't just say shit without giving you the facts, right? We always can give you evidence to support what we're saying. So I'm going to play this video. What you think, Rodney?
Yeah, might as well.
All right, so fair use, y'all.
After more than a decade of research, a white man from Des Moines found out his great-grandfather was black and actually competed in the Olympic Games in Paris. KCCI's Tissia Muzinga tells us how he made this truly incredible discovery.
Everybody knew it. They just didn't talk about it.
It started when Matthew Lundeen was just a kid, cleaning out his great-grandmother's house when she died in 1997. Inside, he found his great-grandfather's accomplishments in the early 1900s, Charles Brookins Jr.
His Olympic jersey, I think I saw, and there was a room in the basement full of trophies.
Back then, Brookins was praised for his undeniable talent in sports, breaking records in Oskaloosa High School. But track and field was his true calling. The University of Iowa lists Brookins as the first Iowa athlete to hold a world record in events like the 40-yard dash in 1922, 220-yard low hurdles in 1923, and 400-meter hurdles in 1924. He was also a member of the Olympic team at the 1924 Paris Games. This is him finishing second in Paris. Lundeen says he was later disqualified. During his fame and success, Lundeen also says Brookins was running from his truth. Ancestry.com and this U.S. Census gave him his first clue.
Basically, it all came down to I was just going through the data that each census gives you, and next to his name and his family's name was the letter B, which I figured out. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but I figured out it meant black. So I checked the other censuses that I could find them recorded in. And it either had a B next to their names or it had an M for the outdated racist term mulatto.
Newspaper outlets often called him out, even though he passed as white. And his father, Reverend C.R. Brookins Sr., had an open secret too.
You found out more about your great-great-grandfather.
At the end of the article, there was just a short paragraph that said that he was born a slave before the war.
Now, I'm going to stop right there. Right there. Now, y'all see this man, right? This man is white. He has a grandfather that was a slave too, and he was a Negro, just like us. And I'm sure he's not the only white guy around that has the same situation, right? Or the same, family history, So y'all see it, right? But let's keep going.
Learned how to read and educated himself after the war, and then he was planning on heading back south at some point to serve his people.
That was Reverend Brookins' purpose, being a leader in the black community, especially in Iowa. Lundeen has been investigating where the former slave from a Charlottesville plantation died. So far, he narrowed it down to El Paso, Texas in 1908, the last state to end something he was familiar with, slavery. In Des Moines, Tissia Muzinga, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
Unbelievable. Lundeen.
Yeah, unbelievable. You know what I'm saying, Rodney? Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what most black people would say if the federal government started paying monetary reparations to black people. Now, this is the thing. It's impossible for the federal government to pay it to all of us. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm pretty sure all of us don't have a relative that was actually enslaved. All black people weren't enslaved during the time. You know what I mean? Many were, but not all. Now, what's
I know.
crazy is,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say what's crazy is the federal government, to be fair, would have to have a process where we would have to prove that we had a family member that was enslaved. And I'm telling you, you would have so many white people coming out of the woodworks too that I guarantee you, man, they have family members down the line where they can actually get a piece of their action also. And you know, Black America would be mad as hell, right?
Yeah, but I also just thought of a clause that they could and probably should use, because the white guy, grandfather or great grandfather, according to the article, was born a slave. He, the white boy himself, the hillbilly himself, and all hillbillies that would try to make the same claim, even though they have descendants like this hillbilly right here does.
Yes.
They would have to show, if ours had anything to write the law, that they suffered as a result of his enslaved people. And the white boy cannot prove that. None white people can prove that. Suffered means that your family was unable to get loans for houses, education. See, once you got that white skin, once that white skin trickled all the way in, despite what your ancestors were, you did not suffer from being a descendant of a slave, because you don't look like the descendant of a slave. So therefore, you did not have that same suffering. Like we have the same suffering
experience
from the descendant of slave. He didn't experience that, and neither what any hillbilly can prove that they experienced the suffering of the institution of slavery. So that clause be in there, that'll put all the white people out of that joint. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just about, because anybody else don't have standing. Like we don't even have standing to sue for slavery, as we already know, because we were not slaves. So the fact, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that even though his great-great-grandfather was enslaved, and he can't prove that he suffered as a result of what his grandfather did, and his great-great-grandfather is dead, so don't have he don't have standing to talk about what happened to his great-grandfather, because he did not suffer behind what happened to his great-grandfather, whatever we had. So that's how I would kill that joint.
Well, what I was going to say is, to me, that's why it's more beneficial. And again, we talked about this in previous recordings, that is more beneficial to deal with stuff that's more current. Like you said, how, sorry about that, y'all. Like how you said, like discrimination for housing, discrimination with loans. Now,
all of those laws that they implemented in order to continue the punishments that they're still implementing and that they're still using. He as a white person, and all the other hillbillies wasn't subject to that. They were subject to the other side of the law, the houses, all the other stuff. To whereas we, who look like our ancestors, if all our ancestors were enslaved, we that look like them still suffered that after fact. Now, I don't think none of us is qualified to be for reparations for slavery. You know, because none of us were slaves.
Absolutely.
You know, we are entitled to reparations what happened after slavery.
That's what I was trying to say.
And that's where they fucking up.
Yeah, right. The argument should be what happened after
HR
slavery.
1140, and all that shit that all our beautiful, talented, smart scholars, they barking up the wrong tree. The Tallahassee coach and all of our beautiful scholars like him, they're barking up the wrong tree because they're going on something that they don't have standing to talk about.
Absolutely. Because, and I'm glad you said that, Rodney, because I wanted to go back to this. And again, we talked about this before, man. You know, this case is African-American slave descendant litigation, and it's from 2004, and it was issued by the federal court system. It says the Constitution commits to the representative branches of the United States government, which is the executive branch, which will be the president, and the Congress, which is the legislative branch, the authority to resolve the issue of reparations to former slaves resulting from the nation's role in the institution of slavery. Then they go on, right? Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing, We already
people need
did
to
this
go
before.
and read this joint right here and do some research afterwards if they still confused, because it's telling you, you'll come to the same conclusion if you got any type of sense that we may not be entitled to for the slavery, but anytime, because they violated what's inside what Keith is about to go. They violated that.
Yeah,
and that's
they
what
violated
reparations for.
Exactly. The court goes on and says, in this case, there's a strong historical record indicating that the relief sought reparations, right? And they talk about monetary reparations to former slaves following the Civil War was considered and rejected by the representative branches in lieu of other forms of relief. Now I'm gonna go down even further. And this is the part that Rodney was just talking about. This part I'm about to go to now. Make sure I locate it.
But the people need to read the whole thing so they can get a clear. We're just going through the highlights of what we're talking about. That's a nice joint right there. Hold up. Is that a book right there? Freedmen's Bureau of Black Land Ownership?
I believe so.
I think that's what something. This is something that we can look up for the research. I think that's something you can find in the archives for what we was talking about before we got on. It don't have nothing to do with this, but go ahead. Did you see it?
Yeah. Matter of fact, let me start right here, Rodney. Let me start right here. All right. It says the words of Senator Sumner, laminating the decision not to extend monetary or property reparations to freed slaves is hauntingly prophetic of the continued post-emancipation reparations movement. All right. And he said, I do not like the play of the part of Cassandra, but I cannot forbear declaring my conviction that we shall regret hereafter that we have not done more. So we actually had a senator that felt like the government should have done more, should have gave us monetary reparations, although they didn't. And this is what the federal court had to say about it. They say, yet that does not change the fact that the representative branches considered the issue of reparations, right? And they talk about monetary reparations to former slaves, and the chosen vessel of reparations came in the form of constitutional and legislative enactments guaranteeing equality under the law and freedom from discrimination. So according to the federal court, we already received reparations, but the reparations aren't monetary. It came in the form of constitutional and legislative enactments guaranteeing equality under the law and freedom from discrimination. Now, what Rodney was saying is this: have the government kept up with the end of the bargain when it comes to this? Have they always made sure and guaranteed us equality under the law and freedom from discrimination? No, they haven't. That's the point. And there's many situations that happened after slavery that we can point to.
And that's what they violated, because had the chosen vessel was constitutional and legislative enactments guaranteeing the equality under the law and freedom. Had they done that, we would not have needed the monetary or those reparations, because it would have been many Black Wall Streets.
Yep.
You said we wouldn't have needed that.
Facts.
We would not have needed that had they played fair and honored reparations, which was constitutional. In other words, that highlighted piece right here is pretty much saying is that they're going to make shit fair. It's going to be fair and equality across the board for commerce and other areas of life, and like the 9 areas of life. You know what I'm saying? That Nelly Fuller Jr. talked about. If they'd have held true to that right there, we wouldn't need it, because we'd be on. Matter of fact, we would have been ahead of them. That's why they didn't honor it, because they know who we are. We just don't know who we are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why they're not going to give you monetary. Why would you give your enemy money to take you over whenever you know that they'll take your ass over? So yeah, we're going to give you reparations, but we're going to make sure that it's never implemented in a manner to where it'll put you on level footing, period.
That's why I'm of the opinion that we take it. And what I mean by saying we take it by taking advantage of the laws and everything, the way it's written now, and make the best of the opportunities we have here in America. Man, technically, we could do what we have now, man.
Yeah, as long as they play fair. They just don't play fair.
Yeah, that's all we need.
With them not play. If they played fair in the courtroom, if they played fair in commerce, if they played fair in the banks, if they played fair when you're looking for housing, if they played fair when you're looking for jobs, if they played fair when you was running for office, you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't need millions of dollars to run for office whenever money don't vote. You know what I'm saying? If they play fair with everything that they the Constitution and legislative enactments guaranteeing the equality under the law of freedom from discrimination, if they'd have played fair and held their word with that, we wouldn't need money. We wouldn't even be begging right now. But the fact that they didn't do it, that's why we entitled to reparations today. We're not entitled to reparations because of slaves, because we were not slaves. We're entitled for them of violating and violating the Constitution and legislative enactments guaranteeing the equality under the law of freedom from discrimination. They violated those laws and those constitutional enactments that would have guaranteed equality for all. That's what they owe us reparations for. They don't owe us anything for enslavement because we shouldn't have lost the war. You know, I'm not even gonna get into all that. We shouldn't have lost what we did. But the fact that we lost, those who lost the war and was enslaved over their lands and their freedoms and their families was taken, they were entitled to the reparations for former slavery. We're entitled to the violation and the denial of the Constitution and legislative enactments guaranteeing equality under the law and freedom from discrimination. That's what they owe us reparations for, and can't no scholar tell me anything different. Period.
Absolutely.
They can't get past this right here.
Yep.
Period.
Because everything they talking dealing with slave reparations, like monetary reparations for slavery, is not going to pass the test of strict scrutiny. Again, Rodney and I already covered this. We already talked about it. So I'm gonna lay it out there. Hey, Rodney, I'm like this. Prove us wrong if you can. Please share, like, and subscribe, and drop us a comment in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts. All right.
And just one more quick thing. Just like I just said that we're not entitled to slavery to the slave reparation because we were not slaves. That's the same thing the hillbilly said. What's his name? What's the hillbilly? Mitch McConnell. He said, I don't know why y'all asked for slavery. It wasn't us.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said, I didn't enslave y'all. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck y'all bothering me for? I only benefited from y'all. Not asking for me for the benefits. Y'all asking for some slavery I ain't had nothing to do with.
Absolutely.
He tell you the same thing I'm saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. But peace, y'all.
Peace.